Hey guys, this is Smithy. Welcome to my channel. Today's video, we're going to talk about eyeshadow palettes. And you know how much I love my eyeshadow palettes. I get super excited and super chatty as soon as I talk about these. And I am going to talk about Spicy Neutrals eyeshadow palettes. I actually got this idea from Enle Beauty. She's a very dear friend of mine. I saw her doing this video of her version of Spicy Neutrals and I was like, I need to do this. I love neutrals. I love colorful. I love neutrals with a twist. And this video is all up for you guys. If you love eyeshadow palettes, if you love neutral but with like a twist eyeshadow palettes, you are here for a treat. So without further ado, let's begin. I was aiming for 10. I have 2 palettes from the same brand, so I'm still counting it as 10. But ideally, we have 11 palettes. So let's begin. The first palette that I want to talk about is Glaminatrix Cosmetics Sugar and Spice palette. This palette, from the time this was revealed, like cover was revealed, I was like, that's a neutral palette, I need it right now. I do have a code with Glaminatrix Cosmetics and it's Smithy Sony to save you 10% off. Look at the inside of this palette. This is definitely neutrals with a twist. You do have the basic neutral tones in the center and you have multi-chromes and shifty shades here in the top row. Obviously, I'm holding it upside down, you get the gist. And then you have colorful pastel tones again with like iridescent shifty tones here. It is such a beautiful palette. I cannot even tell you, this is amazing. I have this shade in my inner corners and I have this shade, what is this called? Nutmeg, right on the inner portion of my eyelid. It is such a stunning shade. I cannot even begin to tell you. If you were eyeing Glaminatrix Cosmetics and you were like, that brand is too colorful for me, go with this palette. You will thank me later because yes, it has a hint of color in it, but it is all wearable tones and you would absolutely love it. The next palette I'm going to talk about, it's Whatsa Beauties Dragon Eye palette. I know this doesn't scream neutral. But this art cover, so it's so much unlike anything else in my collection. I'm staring at that eye. Look how stunning that is. Oh my god. The shades inside this. Yes, Smithy, is this neutral? I would say the tones of the mattes are pretty neutral to me. Like whatever mattes you pick up and put it on your eyes, it's colorful, but it is neutral enough. It's muted enough to make it more of a neutral look. These shades, like the shimmery shades, are not like punchy by any means. They give a lot of sparkle and shine, but it's not punchy. You can make it punchy by like spraying it or putting a glitter glue. But if you just apply that with your fingers or with like a brush, it will give you just sparkle and shine with a hint of color, but nothing over the top. This shade is such a stunning shade. This too, it's gonna give you the most stunning everyday look of your life. I love this palette so very much. I've traveled with this so many times in my life. I love this. Like this is such a mighty and a smaller palette. You can see like this is pretty much like very small compared to any other palettes in my collection. But this definitely is one among the top palettes in my collection. And I have quite a few, but this definitely, I would highly recommend if you're scared of colors and if you want to dip your toes into colors, try with this. It's just a stunning brand. The mattes blend beautifully. The shimmers are shimmering. It's not like so impactful that it will steer you like otherwise. I can wear this to office without thinking one bit. Like I love it. Okay, let's talk about a high-end brand now. We're going to talk about Huda Beauty. Huda Beauty does a lot of palettes and a lot of them can be like a neutral palette. But if you're more into like chocolatey burgundy tones and you want to keep it neutral, Naughty Nude palette is going to be your friend. This definitely is like neutrally brown leaning, but there are some aspects in this which will just keep it so different and it will just create such an interest in your eyes. Like this shade, beautiful. It gives like a blue twist to it. Obviously there are some like beautiful chocolatey tones. This red can give you that fieriness that you're looking for. This shameless shade is such a beautiful pink to a golden shifting shade. It is just a stunning palette. The shade that I do not use is this gel shade. I don't even know why she puts this. Like I've tried this a million ways, but nothing has like, it doesn't speak to me. I feel like I'm just dedicating more time by using the shade, and if I do not use that shade, this palette is perfect. Just perfect. Okay, I've used that as a primer, I've used that as so many things. It just doesn't work for me. I rather use all the other shades in the palette, and it just is such a beautiful, beautiful color story. I love Huda Beauty mattes. Like, that's not a news to anybody. And her mattes, the shimmers, everything is just gorgeous. This palette, definitely top tier product from her line in general. If you love a good, rich, romantic, chocolatey tone on your eye, this palette is for you. Okay, let's talk about one of my favorite brands that we have from the indie makeup industry, and that is Bel Bebar. The Sun and the Sea palette is where my love affair started for Bel Bebar. Man, oh man, is this beautiful. Like, look at this. Yes, it is colorful, but it is neutral. It gives me such variety of looks, like the top row or neutral. Like, this red is what I have like mending in between the Glaminatrix shade and the deeper brown shade. Like, I have this bast shade on the outer corners. I have this overexposed on my crease. I have this heat wave shade mending with that shade. It is such a beautiful, beautiful palette. I absolutely love it. And of course, you can use these like pops of shades in your lower lash line, in the inner corners. These iridescent shades, stunning, kiss worthy. This shifts like no other. If you are a shifty person and you want to incorporate like neutrals with shifty shimmers on your eyelid, this palette will just be beautiful. This Sandcastle shade, so pretty, so pretty. This has some beautiful iridescent multichromes, some beautiful shimmering shades. The tones of the browns, I know it all looks like super similar, but on the eyes, trust me, it is so different. Like, this is a warm tone crease shade for me. This is a cool tone, neutral tone like crease shade for me. This is such a beautiful orangey terracotta-y shade, and this is a chocolatey brown shade. Like, beautiful. If I want to deepen this out, I just put a hint of this blue towards it, and that gives me more of like a punchy chocolatey brown shade. Beautiful. I do have a code with Bel Bebar too. It's Smithy Sony to save you 10%. Okay, let's talk about Unearthly Cosmetics. This palette, I've used this so much that I've like actually shocked myself that how much I've used this. Okay, this is the Sorcerous Smoke palette. This actually, I purchased this last year, like towards the end, but this came in my collection this year in the beginning, and I have used this like so much. This potent shade, my favorite shade in the palette. Favorite shade in the palette. Is that potent? Yes, that's the potent shade. Love it. This Vervin shade, beautiful. Do you want to know a surprise? This green shade, stunning. That's saying something coming from me, because I do not like so much of greens, but that is a stunning green shade. The least used shade in this palette is this purpley blue shade, and that can be just because it's like a little more deeper toned shadow, and I do not reach out for that shade. I should. But this is a stunning palette, you guys. I have created some beautiful grungy looks, some everyday looks, some warm tone looks, some cool tone looks. This is beautiful. You definitely can go a million directions with this palette, and the quality is absolutely outstanding. Would highly recommend this if you were eyeing a neutral but with like a spicy twist to it. This palette is amazing. Let's talk about It's Bel Cosmetics. I'm going to talk about my Pixie Grove palette. Now, this is definitely a colorful palette, more colorful than any other palette that is in my collection, but I can also take it more on like an everyday twist to it. This can be like an honorable mention, okay? Because I feel like these tones of greens can be very neutral. This tone of like peachy orangey shade, that can be very neutral. It has some gold in it. It has some oranginess with like a green shift to it. That is pretty neutral. This burgundy, I consider burgundy as a neutral. For me, I feel like these three shades are the only like colorful Jatak shade in the palette, but rest everything can be worn with a neutral shade, and this definitely can be like called as a complementary palette to a neutral palette. But the quality is absolutely outstanding. I wanted to recommend this just because I just wanted to. That's the only reason, but I absolutely love the quality of this palette. Why did I get this idea? Obviously, Brittany is a big reason for it, but as soon as I saw even the title of her video just come across, this is the palette that just shouted out to me, and I'm going to talk about Adept Cosmetics Flying Fiddles palette. This is such a stunning palette. Again, this palette, I have used this and traveled with so many times, and I cannot thank enough Adept Cosmetics to making this palette. Obviously, this was purchased by me. I'm an affiliate with Adept Cosmetics. My code is Smithy Sony to save you 10% off, but I purchased this palette from my own money. This is such a beautiful palette. Look at the shiftiness. None of the shades are like that creamy formula that Adept is known for. Like, for example, I do have all their palettes right in front of me. I have their Minka palette. They have some like grittier, shimmery tones. It's not like that. I also have like the Heather Austin palette right in front of me. These shades are like more creamy and emollient. It's not like that. I do have their Element 115 palette. I feel like it's closer to Element 115 like shimmers. Quality wise, this palette, it's not emollient, but it is effective and it is so smooth on the eyes. It has such beautiful sparkle running throughout it, and the tones that they chose for this palette is truly unreal. I love the tones that were chosen in it. Is it like my perfect neutral palette? No, but this is a neutral palette with a twist for sure, because it has that addition of that green tones put in it. That is what makes it a little bit more spicy in my opinion. And obviously they have some like fiery orangey, pinky, green shimmering multichromes in this too. That also just puts it up a notch for spicy neutral palettes, and this definitely is high up the ladder in my opinion for 2024 palettes ranking, and I cannot recommend this enough. I feel like I'll just get so much use out of this palette. Already I've used this in office so very much. I've traveled with this like 3 times already, and we're just sitting in May. This is beautiful. I love it. Okay, let's talk about another brand, which is like my top tier brand in my collection. And when I thought of another neutral leaning palette with a twist, this palette jumped out to me. And this is Enle Rain's Harvest Moon palette. Again, is it colorful? Yes. But is it neutral with a colorful twist? Yes. I absolutely love this palette. Like, if you love multichromes, you need to try Enle Rain Cosmetics. I have a code with Enle Rain Cosmetics, and it is Smithy Sony to save you 10% off. This palette is truly shimmering from every angle. This has some beautiful formulas. They have some smooth multichromes, some textural multichromes, some holochromes, some emollient shades, some toppery shades, and the mattes. These mattes might look like super deep, but with a big fluffy brush, you can definitely use this as like a transitioning shades too. And that's the beauty about these Enle Rain palettes. I really love this palette so very much. Cannot recommend this enough. I do have another palette from Enle Rain coming in just a few seconds. But yes, I would highly recommend this. Let's talk about another and the last high-end brand that I'm going to talk about in today's video is Natasha Denona. And whenever I think about this palette, again, this palette shouts spicy neutrals to me. And this is my dream palette from Natasha Denona. This is my favorite palette that they have done so far. And this is such a stunning palette. Like, I love everything that was included in this palette. You can go warm tones, neutrals, cool tones, purpley tones. It is such a beautiful palette. And for a change, they included a multichrome, which also performs very beautifully on the eye. I love everything about this palette, and I cannot recommend this enough. This definitely is the best version of a high-end spicy neutral palette that I could find in my collection, and the quality is right up there, and I cannot recommend this enough. I do have a code for Natasha Denona. It is Smithy Sony to save you 15% off. So if you're buying anything on their website, do use my code and you'll save some money. I would highly recommend this. The next brand, this is the first palette that they have released from that brand, and I'm so impressed by them. This is Krypton Cosmetics Burnt Forest palette. This is fiery neutrals. Like, this is definitely spicy. This is so beautiful. Obviously, all the mattes are like a neutral leaning. Obviously, there are like green tones, which I don't consider as neutrals, but a lot of people consider greens as neutrals. The same way I consider purples as neutrals. But this is definitely a earthy, fiery, neutral tone palette. But the shimmers is what makes it fiery. I love the addition of two toppery shades here, more green leaning and one more blue leaning. This is such a beautiful, like a smoky blue black shade. Like night sky is an apt name for this. And this shade and this shade, oh my god, look at the shiftiness. This is a fiery pink on the eyes. Like it is so beautiful. It has a green, strong green base, but it's fiery pink on the eyes. And this one, green, red, orange. It's such a beautiful shade. Let me just swatch it for you guys. Look at that. Look at that and tell me if it's not fiery. I don't know what is fiery. Like what? This is amazing. Amazing. I didn't want to swatch anything, but you should see the quality of these palettes. This is such a stunning palette in my humble opinion. Last, certainly not the least, again, you know, it is an Enle Rain palette, and I'm going to talk about Groovy Garden palette. This is another palette that I've used so much this year. The standout for me in this palette are the matte. The mattes are truly breathtaking. I have a pan going on in this shade, which is Free Spirit. It's such a beautiful shade. This vintage white shades, I've used this so very much. But the mattes, oh my goodness, every matte in this palette is such a stunning addition to the palette. They blend beautifully. They beat Natasha Denona Huda Beauty quality in the water. Like this is my favorite matte and shimmer formula that has ever existed. Like I love the quality of Ensley Rain palettes. Again, I would highly recommend it. If you love this color story, especially if you love green shimmers on your eyes, you need to buy this. You will not be regretful at all if you buy this palette, because this is stunning. Like the mattes are amazing. You just touch it and it'll blend for you. And the shimmers are beautiful. It's so yummy that every time I open it, I want to use it. Like the imprints have gone. That's how much I've used it. Like this mushroom is where? This. I've used it tons. In the shimmer category, this shade, and this shade, the most used shade in the palette. Like I love it, absolutely love it. Cannot recommend it enough. Again, Smithy Sony to save you 10% off. So those were my 11 additions for the spicy neutral palette. I really hope that you guys enjoyed this. I had a few more palettes in my collection like Glam Light Chocolate Martini, but they're all like discontinued and I didn't want to talk about discontinued palettes. But that's all for today, guys. Do let me know in the comment section below that out of your collection palettes, which do you consider as your spicy neutral palette? But that's all for today. If you did like this video, you know what to do. Do give it a thumbs up and also subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and ring that notification bell so that you're notified every time that I post next. I generally upload 3 videos every single week, every Tuesdays, Thursdays and Saturdays at 9 AM Eastern Standard Time. Until next time, I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye guys.